Thanks for staying with us here at STL Live. I'm Andy Ruzicka. My guests are Assistant Principal Dr. Darryl Diggs Jr. and co-founder of the Black Male Educators STL, Dr. Howard Fields. They're here talking about their event, the State of Black Male Educators Symposium. So we were talking a bit about the break, about advocating for students, but we're also in this symposium advocating for teachers. Is it hard to recruit teachers in the current environment, Dr. Diggs?
In my personal opinion, I don't think it's hard to recruit teachers at all, and it's not hard to recruit black male educators furthermore, as long as you're intentional. And so in this symposium opportunity, what we want to do is be sure that we're addressing the need, number one, by talking about what's necessary inside schools. And we do that with the leaders that are of our school districts. So for example, superintendents, principals, other building and district leaders. Because when it comes to recruitment, often in schools we have to fight the stigma of, okay, what is the best fit, right? And so with that is that code for something else. So as we're working with teachers and trying to be an advocate and a mentor for them, we dive deep into resume work, we dive deep into questions and how we can best work through and also be our authentic selves when it comes to the interview process. So to your question about recruiting, the educators are there. We just need to make sure that districts know that they are and that they are a viable candidate for any and every type of position in their organization.
And Dr. Fields, we were talking about self-care with that as well, being an advocate for each other. Why is it important for black male educators to talk about self-care with teachers?
I think so often, a lot of educators, we put on the burden of we have to be perfect. We represent a whole entire culture, society, and that's a large burden to carry by yourself. In addition to that, we typically give so much of ourselves to students, we typically give so much to our colleagues that there's nothing left for ourselves or when you get home. There was a wise statement by a former administrator that said, when you get home, if you're too tired to have fun with your kids, quite frankly, you're working too hard. And I think that's an accurate depiction in terms of our work. So with the self-care component, we talk a lot about how are you taking care of yourself? Because if not, that's when you see situations where teacher A or administrator B, they just stop contributing to education, or they just left the field, or some pieces of bitterness. That does not happen overnight. And often enough, we get to a particular breaking point, and then that's when things come out. And sometimes that can be too late. So from a proactive standpoint, how are we taking care of ourselves? How are we establishing the vulnerability it takes to have a conversation with Dr. Diggs to say, you know what, I'm not doing okay, and here's what's going on. I think those are byproducts of agency when you establish an environment for folks to come together, connect, and also just support one another. In BME STL, we talked a lot about your success is my success and vice versa. How can we support one another and model that, not just for ourselves, but also for our students? And I think that's a large component in what we're trying to establish.
So it's very inclusive, you'd say.
Absolutely.
A very inclusive group overall. I think there's even an agenda item on inclusivity. Is that correct, Dr. Diggs?
Absolutely. So within the middle of our connection session, we're bringing in the collective STL to come in and to talk about self-care, you know, in the main frame of yoga. Right? So again, if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we're not able to be lifelong educators inside classrooms with kids. Because without this time for ourselves to connect, then we would tend to burn out.
So when we talk about all the different agenda events, you mentioned the connection session, and that they do yoga at the symposium?
So what they'll do is that they'll speak about their organization from a standpoint of, okay, this is what they do, and then also this is how it relates to the work inside classrooms, and then also how it benefits the educator as well as the student if we're able to bring mind, body, and soul together.
And Dr. Fields, there's I believe, a panel discussion. Is this a panel where, or a moment when the audience gets to ask questions, or is this a kind of a led panel?
Not necessarily for the sake of time, not standing up and putting the microphone in the audience, but we've been in conversation with our planning committee. We've been in conversation in passing. Once folks get a chance to see us at some of our events, you all should ask this question, or what about that? So it's been a coordinated effort, and then the planning committee will look at all of the questions and try to find out what are the top 8 questions, and then what are the top X amount of questions that we absolutely have to get to. We're not trying to put into place some questions that are just very surface level. We don't believe in surface level being the avenue to address some of the complex issues we have in our system and in our field. So we're going to ask some of those questions that can really help people, because my hope is that folks who come to the event, when they leave, it's the difference between them leaving the profession and staying in the profession. It's the difference between them saying, you know what, I'm going to continue into education, as opposed to I don't want anything to do with education. And the most important part for me is the difference between them finding their authentic self and finding their voice with both confidence, agency, and collaboration, as opposed to, no, I'm going to acquiesce or assimilate into my culture that's at school, and then when I leave, I'll be someone else. So all of those things, I think, is a byproduct of agency, and all of those things are going to help us move forward with addressing some of the complex issues, but ultimately enhancing learner outcomes for all of our students. That's at least the angle that we are trying to come from.
Well, we're out of time, unfortunately. I'm sorry. We could talk about this all day, because
Absolutely.
it's such an important topic.
It
If the
is.
teachers are doing well, they're going to work harder to make sure kids are learning and being engaged at school. So
Absolutely.
they're better as well.
Absolutely.
Everybody benefits.
Absolutely.
So the State of Black Educators Symposium takes place this Friday, February 7th, from 5 to 7:30 p.m. at the Blanche M. Two-Hill Theater at the University of Missouri St. Louis campus. It's located at 1 Two-Hill Circle. For more information, contact Black Male Educators at 314-329-5155 or email blackmaleeducatorsstl@gmail.com, or you can visit them online, bmestl.com. There's more STL Live after this. Stay with us.